Are live.
Yeah.
Good day, sir.
Morning.
Morning. I felt like an old man just now. I was griping about how cold it is in our house in the morning.
Well, yeah, right. If you reflect on our conversation, just talking about all this technology and kids and yes, right, weather, being cold,
It's funny
body
for
heat.
someone who does cold plunging every morning. I hate cold. Like I hate being cold, which I find interesting that I put myself through that every day.
Well, isn't that? But as you've shared with me, that's also the idea, I guess, right? Because you're doing something that you don't like
Yeah,
every day to show yourself that you can. And yeah, Tony says that, right? Like, I own this thing, right? Like, I'm going to make you do this.
yeah, yeah. And if I had shared with you, I'm not sure if I shared with you a quote that I read, and I'm not sure if it's his quote or if he read it somewhere and posted it, but I saw a post from Dan Martell who said it was him in the gym, and it said, "Exhaust the body to tame the mind." And I love that. I love that quote. And
Hmm.
I thought about it's like in the context of my cold plunge. Like it's not that I'm exhausting my body by doing that, but it's like I'm bringing my body under the dominion of my mind and my spirit and my soul. It's like I'm telling my body, no, you're not in charge. Like this physical meat suit here, the things that I want, like the desire for comfort and for uh, Reese's peanut butter cups and just self pleasure, just like pleasure on a moment's notice type of thing for this
Sure.
physical thing. That's
Yeah.
not in charge.
Yeah.
It's something
Well,
bigger.
this isn't what we were going to talk about, but I love that idea. Because it's also like you were saying, you're getting your mind to tame the body. Like we're doing this, but then also in that quote, what I hear is the body after exhausting it is taming the mind too, because
Hmm.
you've got this energy that is now being displaced thanks to the body that would have otherwise gone into the brain, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so often we think it's like it's one or the other,
Right.
and we know with kids, like kids learn so much better through physical activity. And if they're just sitting around all day on their devices and sitting around on the couch all day, like, and I mean
Yeah.
it's the same with us. It's not that, like they're any different, but it's highlighted so much more with kids.
They need physical activity, like you can, like, I could see this, especially with our son when he was, probably 3. Like he needed to be like ran, like, like kind of like you would take a dog for a walk or out to the park or whatever. Like he needed
Hmm.
physical activity. Otherwise he would just go a little bonkers. And he's always being super active. And I mean, all of my kids, and even in school, right? I'm glad that the schools are starting to finally maybe appreciate this, where it's not good to sit the kid at a desk and hope that they're going to be able to listen and pay attention and behave for what, 6 hours or whatever it is, 5.5 hours. No, they need to go outside. And if they need extra, I mean, they've got recess and lunch, but if they need extra exertion, they are allowed to go for action breaks. So the teacher lets them out and they run around the school and they come back. And my son loved that. I mean, partially because he didn't have to be in the classroom, but also like they need that.
That's so cool. Action
Yeah.
breaks. I like that. I'm gonna start taking more action breaks.
Right? For ourselves. Yeah. Right.
Well, that is a good memory of your kid running around the school like that,
Yeah.
which kind of leads us into what you wanted to talk about today.
I thought it'd be fun. We're doing this for our grandkids and whoever else wishes to listen. And I think I shared this before. I'll keep plugging this, that we do have our own custom GPT on the Chat GPT marketplace for those dads that are kind of techie like Kalan and I. And you can go in there and ask us questions, even when we're not around. And of our shows, all of our show notes and transcripts are in there. And so I wanted just to give that a little plug because I don't know, just by having that there, I guess it speaks to my values around like efficiency, and someone doesn't have to watch, 30 hours of our show if they don't want to. They can go in there and you just get high dose of us asking a specific question, and the GPT is actually, trained to give a response and reference some of our shows as well if they do want to go watch the whole thing. So, anyways, wanted to plug that, and it's just giving me a lot more juice now to talk about more things because now it's going to be available to people in a more, in a different way that they can get condensed answers if they want.
At what point do you think that there's going to be people will be able to go in there and ask questions or have a conversation, and it'll actually be our voice?
I mean, we could do that now. We'd have to do there's we could set that up. There's the AI platforms that you can train to speak like you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't even have to have done this. You have to give it like 30 seconds of your voice and then it's already trained to talk like you. Um, so we could take that and then our content and then that's there. Which is a little concerning and I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear, what I am going to do this. So my grandfather has an interview that he gave, and I have some great memories of him, but not like I was really young. Like I never really got to know him, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't speak English that well. But I'm gonna see like I can't understand his interview because it's all in Japanese, but I can read a transcript that was translated. But what I'd be curious to know is, and I'm gonna do an experiment, is what would it feel like for him to, talk to me in his voice in English so I could understand it and then start to answer some questions about his life. So I don't
Mm.
know. It's an interesting place that we're at with technology and ancestry. And
Yeah, yeah. It's like I saw those one of those. I can't remember which service it was, but they would translate my voice into whatever language I wanted, and it would change it on the video. So it would like sync my lips to move just like in the new language and in my
okay.
own voice. I remember seeing somebody do it. I'm like, oh my, this is incredible. Like it was
So you're speaking Spanish
unbelievable.
or
Yeah, yeah. Some guy was speaking in English, and then he saw him speaking in Spanish, and then in it was like Mandarin, and then it was incredible.
so yeah, we had a whole show, didn't we, on AI and there's just going to be more and more of this content that is ultimately like for me it goes to like authenticity. Like we're really going to want to get better and have more ability to know, is this us talking right now? Like, should we just put a bunch of AI versions of ourselves on the show here to rant about stuff back and forth? Because, we've experimented with Google's, what is it called? Notebook LM, where
Hmm.
you can feed it a bunch of content and it'll auto generate a podcast episode with two human sounding bots talking about the content. So I just think that yeah, a big thing coming out of all this right now, at least for me, is authenticity. Like, how will that it is you speaking, or is it something you train to speak like you in Spanish?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'm not even here right now.
This is why we like The Matrix so much, isn't it?
That's true.
It always goes back to that movie.
I'm always amazed how many years go by that it seems to be more relevant every year. Like it holds
Right.
up even better this year than it did last year.
Yeah, like the whole, one of the surface premises of the first movie was that AI takes over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that it has
Very.
to, but it's just, yeah, it was a possible scenario.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so I went on a bit of a rant. I apologize. The idea for the show here, again, talking to our grandkids, is to share some of our favorite memories as dads. And just, when I thought about that and some of the memories, I was like, oh, that would be fun. That's juicy. And, whoever's listening, just to think about, because for me, like emotion, creates these memories that stand out. And it's pretty easy to think back on, yeah, favorite ones that really stand out. So good reflection for perhaps any parent to just go, yeah, what were some of those favorite memories and, how recently are they? And do I want to create some more of those? What is it? Is there a theme to them? Anyways, that was the topic. Favorite memories as a dad.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Like when there are like I guess in the also inverse, like when There are a memory. When there's a memory, there is an emotion.
Yep.
And when we have an emotion, we also think back to a memory. So, and good and bad. And also, so is one of the things I think about thinking about memories and thinking about things like you mentioned, like, well, like the worst memories of being a parent. And it's funny that sometimes when I think about those things, like the worst times, it's easy to get back into that emotion, but also being that it's in the past, and especially when I'm of more sound mind and I'm well rested and I can think a little bit more clearly about things, I can look back on things and go, oh, wait a second. I can reframe kind of what happened in the sense that the negative part of it, there's actually a lesson that I could learn from that. And maybe the negative part of the thing was actually just the state of mind that I was in, or I was stressed about something else, and so I brought that into the situation. So the negative actually parts, yeah, end up being good, quote unquote good, because well, I get to reframe it, I get to tell a different story, and I get to learn from it.
Which is huge, right? Because, as I hear you say that, I don't know, just to compliment yourself, that I don't know what percent of people do that though. You could have an experience, right? And have it be negative, like make it mean like we make up the meaning of it. So, you know, just talking this out, like you could have a bad experience because you've made it mean something bad and you haven't been able to find the, growth in it that I'm hearing you say. Like you haven't been able to get the learning from it, see it in a different way. Because then when you do think about it, it might still feel really bad. This is,
Mm-hmm.
if it's really bad, right? That's the whole idea of, I know you work probably with a lot of people who've had traumatic experiences. You could have a really bad memory that was actually traumatic that your system still remembers to this day, even though it happened, a long time ago, because you haven't been able to, and it's not easy sometimes, right? You haven't been able to
Mm-hmm.
find a different way to process it, to get some help with it, to rewire your system around it so that you can look back on it and go, yeah, I can see the good in it, or the learning in it, or the, the reason why it happened, or the benefit anyways. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really powerful skill that you have to be able to reframe things like that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've watched enough Tony Robbins interventions to know that when he pulls deep, dark memories out of people, like his ability to help them reframe and see the positive and see the what he calls the positive intent in any situation. I mean, I've heard and seen some things that are far worse than anything I've ever been through, and so to think like, well, if they can do it, I can do it too.
You're right. Yeah. I think about and if anyone wants to sort of get a taste of Mr. Robbins, um, I'm Not Your Guru was the documentary he did, right? And on
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, maybe
On
still.
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, and he goes behind the scenes of some of his events, and he goes into some of his serious interventions he does, right? Like I've been to, can't remember now, 3 or 4 of Date with Destiny, where that's one of the places he does the most significant interventions when he asks the audience. I think it's like on day 3. It's like a 5 or 6 day event now. I can't remember. Maybe day 2 even. He asks who in the audience is thinking about committing suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and he will he said it'll be like 5% of the room or something. He knew the number of people that would stand up, and sure enough, I was like, who's gonna stand up? That's like, and sure enough, like whatever it is, 100 people in the room stand up, and you're just like, there's a guy in my row, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like, did he just ask that question? Did those people just stand up? But he also knows he's got his team reading all the forms of that people submit, ahead of the event, so he
Mm-hmm.
does already know some people that he can work with, and so he'll start to select members of the audience that have had serious stuff happen in their life, like just unimaginable, right? For most of us. But then through that intervention process with them, you can witness in real time this person start to get out of this horrible situation that they're still reliving and still thinking is, yeah, awful, which it is by many accounts, but then get to a place where they can see the gift in it in like
Mm-hmm.
real time, you know, and then you see them afterwards, and their life is like, even in a few days afterwards, like their whole appearance starts to change. And from that point forward, he said he's never lost anyone that he's worked with, that their whole trajectory is now different because of his ability to help them. I mean, they're doing the work ultimately, but he's supporting them to create a whole new perception and also a whole new, you know, neurology around it. It's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember when I was first going through his training program. So I did like his coach certification, and we had to watch. I mean, I think it was well over 100 hours of him doing interventions, and they would also, so you'd watch the intervention, and then they would break it down like, okay, this is what he's doing here, this is what he's doing here. And I mean, it's so masterful the way that he does it. And I remember going through that, and at first thinking, well, yeah, that seems great real time, but like, what happens a month from now? Like, what happens 6 months from now? Like, are
Right,
these
right.
changes that have actually been sustained? And then about a year into the program, they actually went and redid. I think there was, I can't remember. There was probably 15 or 16, 17 of the interventions that we had watched. They did follow ups. So these are like 5, 10, 15 year follow ups
Hmm.
on these people that were part of these interventions. And you see Tony and sometimes Sage and sometimes the other is part of the that certification program. This woman Chloe Madonis, who's a family counselor,
Hmm.
um, she was there too. So they were interviewing these people, and it was unbelievable. Like the changes that these people had made, even like 10 years later, they were still not only sustaining, but had continued to grow, continued to change, continued to evolve that far into the future from that one moment. Like that one moment was like, it was just the pivot point that was just like, boop, that just changed everything.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah, I forgot that you had done that. That's amazing. Um, because then you realize that like, and then I'm sure you're through that program, and I know you do this in your practice and with your clients. Like then you start to realize that this is possible. You start to do it yourself. You know, you start to pick up on, okay, you know, we're actually not that complicated necessarily. Like he's giving you the framework and the tools and the methods, you know, like, um, yeah, that's because I've been to 12 of his events too, and you can see over and over again some of the ways he does it. You know, he also shared in Leadership Academy. Actually, Chloe was on stage speaking about, you know, her method as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those were big ahas. It's like, oh, this is where Tony got it from too, right? If you can start to understand the sort of lineage of where some of his practices come from. But then you know, he gets you to go and do it yourself now, right? And you know, I'll share quickly, just you know, since we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but the in that one date with Destiny, that was the first one I'd been to. He breaks you into teams too, so that you can take these big concepts and then sort of work on them individually and then in groups, and then sometimes you get a buddy, you know. But in our team, there was one gentleman who stood up too at that event that he was thinking about and had thought about for a while and even attempted multiple times suicide. And
Mm.
even though Tony didn't work with him, our team did. And I ended up being quite close with him at that event too. He changed some things for me too as a dad. He gave me some incredible perspectives as a dad, I can share. But even just seeing how Tony did it and then getting some of these tools, we were able to do it with this gentleman at the event. And then uh, I don't know, his life might have also changed just even from him being able to hear how Tony did it, right? And then being able to do it for himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think I go back sometimes to when I think about things that we're doing. Like it's sometimes to me feels self-aggrandizing. Like I get here to I sit here with you every week, and we talk about stuff, and I feel a bit more important within myself because like I feel like I'm contributing something, or like it also helps me. Like I get on here, and, because I learn a lot from you, and I'm inspired by all the things you do, but it's like I sometimes think, well, yeah, but I never know how far reaching something might be. Like yes, it might not be that Tony gets to work with me directly, but I get to learn from the people that he's affected, and then they share their thing. And because they shared, and I think, just the fact that we are sharing, there's there's an opportunity that someone can hear something, whether it's directly from something I said or something that you said, or it's just something that it jogs the memory of something, or it made them think about something else, or it points them to a different resource that then becomes something that changes everything for them. And I think, if there's even the remote possibility that one person can hear something and it puts them on a path that makes it forever better for them. And then we think about, because of what we're doing, it's not just about the things that I do for myself, but I'm here because I want to change generations. I want to change things for my kids, and I know that I'm not likely going to be the next Tony Robbins, but who knows? Maybe one of my kids will be. Maybe somebody that they interact with will be. But because of the ripple effect of just doing this one small thing can just be really, really, really big. So I'm always encouraged from things like that, from stories like you told. It's it's always better to share. It's always better to bring a little bit more love. It's always better to just be a little bit more intentional in this moment, because you never know.
Yeah, I love that, man. I 1000% agree. That rippling effect, you're right. We don't know, and I'll just add then. So the part about well, I don't know. I won't share his name, but he shared with me many things at that event, but just even one, like I was saying, that he shared with me. This is the gentleman at Date with Destiny who had shared that he was suicidal. He shared with me one thing about his parenting that he didn't like. I don't know if he even intend to, but he was saying, and I picked up on it, and then I asked him some questions. So he was sharing that his son, and my son might have been, he was young. Like, I saw a clip of him, I don't know, 7, 8. His son got him up at 5 a.m. to go to swimming practice. His son got him up to train. His son wanted to go and competed in this, or not even competed, but he went and did this swim where you swim. It's in San Francisco. You swim to Alcatraz, I guess, and back.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. Like, this is, I don't know what that distance is, but you're in open water and significant event. And so this dad was just so humble about, this is all my kid wanting to do this. And I was like, wait, how did you do that? Because in my experience, it's typically the parent that's like, oh, come on, let's go. We got to get to soccer. Come on, we got to get to hockey. Come on, you're late. Let's go,
Mm-hmm.
And he even showed me this clip where the kid was on the news for maybe the youngest kid that ever done this swim. And just that one thing that he, like this gentleman is super humble. The one thing that, I kind of had to pull it out of him, just changed my whole perception. I mean, who knows? But in my experience of things, that gave me a whole new dynamic and perception around what's possible with our kids if we really find out what they love. Is they're gonna want to go to practice, and we might not be the ones because it's pouring rain or freezing cold or whatever. But yeah, how we do that's huge rippling effect.
It's amazing. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So what are some of the rippling effects of some of the memories? I guess, yes. Yeah, so share with me a memory that you have from that's kind of really stuck with you. Some of your favorite memories.
So like I have, we were just jamming about this before the show. I mean, there's the big ones, like finding out for the first time we were pregnant. That will forever stay in my memory as one of my favorite memories. And it just, if we talk about in the context of being a dad, on each time our kids were born, very vivid memories, favorite memories of those experiences. And we can dive in any one of these that we have here, but I'll just give you a quick rundown. But even small ones, right? Like with our first, I made a whole video clip of the first time she rolled over. That was one of my favorite memories, that watching this little one trying to figure it out, and then finally being able to flip herself on her stomach. And I created this it's on my YouTube channel, this video of that was one of my favorite memories. And so there's and even just last night, our youngest, third, she had been working and working and working quietly. I didn't even know she was doing this, but she had a goal of doing a chin up. And
Oh yeah, I saw that
she
video that you posted. Yeah.
she was so excited. That was actually not the first time she did it. She didn't want me to film the first time she did it. But the first time she did it, she was super excited to have me come see Daddy. Come look what I'm so happy I did this thing. Okay, okay, what is it? Anyway, and I was like, what? When have you been doing this? So she must have been doing it at the playground and whatever. Finally figured out how to do a chin up, and I've posted this before a couple times on Instagram. That I don't like to use the word proud a lot of times, but I was so happy for her and so impressed, and I acknowledged this, the work that she'd quietly put in from having a goal to being able to do it for herself, right? And then being so excited to share.
Hmm.
So, I have favorite memories like that, and then I'm almost done. There's a
So
there's a
wait,
few
wait,
big ones.
back up. Tell me more about you don't like to say that you're proud. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
So I've never really been able to put my finger on it. Like I had this feeling around the word, like, and I shared this recently with my eldest in terms of why I don't say it, because I'm sure she's exposed to a lot of people saying it.
Hmm.
And I told her, I validated this afterwards, but at least for me, I felt like it was something, I was making it about me. If I say I'm proud, like I'm, it just felt like I was taking a little bit away from her experience of something. Like she's really happy about this. She's accomplished something. I don't want to make it about me. I really wanted to
Mm.
honor and validate what she'd done, and I do this with all the kids, right? And so I went and looked it up. I asked ChatGPT, like, why do I feel like this, right? And I gave it some context, and it's like, okay, it gave me a whole rant, and I put this on one of my last posts when I shared my eldest's volleyball highlight reel that she made. And so that's why I say I'm happy for you. Like I want to acknowledge your emotions. I want, and then I'm saying I'm super impressed by the work I've seen you put into this, that you ended up being able to accomplish this. Like you did this. Like maybe I drove you there and gave you a couple pointers or whatever and paid for it, but you did this. So I guess I just really want to make sure that I'm not making it about me. And that the pride, I don't know. It's a bit of an older word. It has some different heaviness to it from maybe different uses in older generations. So personally, I don't use it a lot.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Not right or wrong. It's just and then last three here I put down, there's just some memorable things that we did as a family. I love traveling. I realized how big it was for me when I moved at 24 outside of North America. So I've got a few trips that we went on as a family that, at least for me, some of the kids were kind of young through some of these, but we went to China and Vietnam as a family to visit as a work trip to visit some of the developers that were making our games in my last business. Phenomenal trip, carrying my youngest. She knows that this happened, even though I don't know if she remembers it, but she has pictures of me carrying her on the Great Wall of China. And
Oh wow.
we moved. So that's a favorite one, that trip. And we did that with my business partner and his family. It was just such an amazing trip together. And then for my 40th, I wanted to go back to Malta, where I lived when I was 24. That was the first time I'd left North America, and I got this amazing opportunity to live in Malta. And when I turned 40, I was like, I really want, I wanted my family to experience what I had there and meet the people that I'd become family with there. And so, yeah, at 40, when I turned 40, we moved there for a month as a family and stayed with some friends there and just had a phenomenal, experience, I think life experience. And
Hmm.
then the last one would be we moved to Bali for 6 months and homeschooled the kids. And that was just also a phenomenal life experience of living abroad together. So yeah, those are the highlights of some of my favorite memories.
So what about the is the first one you mentioned about seeing your daughter turn over? Like what was it do you think about that makes it so memorable to you? Like what sticks out?
It's probably the same thing as when I saw my son do his first backflip and how I've seen my daughter eldest progress in her passion of volleyball. She went from statistically probably getting 20% of her serves over the net. And now this season, thanks to ball time AI, I have her actual stats. filming her games, she's getting 95% of the serves over the net, like success rate. Like that's incredible in 2 years. And the same thing with my daughter being able to do a pull up last night. I just so even as a how old she's probably like I can't remember. It's on the video, 3 months old or whatever it was, 6 months. Being able to see your kid want to do something. Like she's trying, she's trying, she's trying. I'm giving her just a little bit of a nudge sometimes so she can get the feeling of it, and then be able to do it, and then this like satisfaction on their face is just I don't know. It's phenomenal. Like that's it's imprinted in my memory. These things. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's just being able to see somebody else, and you're just there, observing, nudging, supporting, loving, whatever is the right thing in the moment. You're not forcing. You're not this isn't about me. You're honoring what they're wanting, and then to see them do it, it just gives me a lot of joy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like that sounds cool. Like the just the idea of when my kids feel proud of themselves or when they feel excited and like look what I did, look at this, look at this. Like I just put myself in their shoes, like oh, like that feeling is so good. Like it's such a good feeling to have, and I love imagining that they're having that feeling.
Yeah, right. And how often do we like they're so real with it, right? That feeling, right? They don't hide it. They're like they're, they haven't been they haven't been conditioned to maybe not hide their excitement. They're just I'm excited about this. Look what I did. I'm proud of myself. Look, Daddy. I love that. And I also think that maybe as you're sharing that too is, do I let myself be proud of myself sometimes, even for little things that I've accomplished? Can I have that same childlike joy of like, look what I just did, even if it's, a push up or a pull up or something even like that, right? Like, look and celebrate that for ourselves. I think that's
Hmm.
something I'm going to take away actually for myself and just be like, Ryan, you need to be be happier about these things that you just did there. That's amazing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the same thought that I had too. And I was thinking about just the other day, like you shared with me, you had a big meeting with the organization that you're working with, and it went really, really well. And you told me about the a message you got from your dad about it, and that like how much pride you felt from that. And I remember just you sharing that with me made me real like it just made me excited too. Like oh, like just seeing you excited got me excited about you being excited, and also like you were just saying, it gives me like it was like oh yeah, like I need to be more excited about little things. Like it's okay. It's natural. It's natural
Right.
to feel excited, to feel honored, to feel proud, to feel happy, to feel thrilled and enamored that yeah, like I did something right. I did something and it went
Yeah.
well, and like I worked at this.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, what did you have some? I know you made some notes there. What are some of yours that stand out for you?
Well, one of them
Memory.
was a lesson, and I know I've shared this story. I believe I've shared this story before because I share it all the time. So I imagine I shared it here when we were. My youngest was within the first year. I think yeah, not even a year. So she was like quite young. We had all the strollers and the baby seats and all the stuff that we brought on vacation, and we were in Puerto Vallarta and coming home. We are waiting to come home, and we were in the airline terminal, and we're waiting for our gate to open. We were massively delayed. We're in this massive terminal. It seemed like a big long hallway, but there was, I mean, there's over 1,000 people in here. It was just packed. There's three gates in this at the end of this one corridor, and our gate was all the way on the left. And then there's a message on the loudspeaker saying that our gate has been changed to the one that's all the way on the right. And we were in the back of the room or the back of this corridor because we were trying to like keep the kids out of like this madness of like just people. My wife calls it butts to nuts. Like when there's just, people are just packed like sardines together,
Okay, that's descriptive. Yeah.
butts to nuts.
Hmm.
That's how she says it. It always stuck with me. And so we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my god, okay, we've got to get all the way across. Like we were already in the back of the room or the back of this corridor,
Hmm.
and we had to get to to the but we were as close as we could be. Now we've got to travel all the way across, and right beside us was a gentleman in a wheelchair who I realized as we hear this, he's also got to go across as well. And I could see the terror and the panic in his eyes. Like, how is he going to do this? Because he's he's in a wheelchair and he's got to get across this huge sea of people. Like, imagine being at a concert, in the mosh pit of a concert, and you've got to, imagine being like a little kid.
Yeah,
trying to get across. You can't even see you can't even see the tops of the people's heads. Like that's all you're seeing. You're just seeing, you're just seeing backs and butts. And that's all you're looking at, that's all you can see. Yeah. And you don't even know where you're going. At least I could see over the crowd. I can know where the that's one of the great things about being tall. You're even taller than me. So I'm like, oh yeah, like it's one of the benefits of being tall. And so it's like instant, I remember just developing a plan. Like, okay, I remember asking the guy, hey, can we help you get across? I'll just push you across. It served two purposes. Number one, it helped him, and also it helped me because I now have an excuse to try to butt through this whole crowd and get my family through. So I remember saying, like, grabbing my older one, she was, I guess she would have been 3.5, maybe 4. Yeah, something like that, about 4. And I said, okay. I grabbed her I guess the car seat that I put around my arm, and I'm like, okay, Ev, hold on to my elbow. I'm like, so hold on to my elbow. And I said, Sarah, my wife, I'm like, okay, you grab the kid, just follow Ev. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna push you. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we just go. So I go to push this guy, and I'm like, okay, excuse me. And then people would turn around, and then all of a sudden, like within 20 seconds, all of a sudden we see this like sea parting. It was like this mythical, like magical thing. Like it was like in a movie. Like people just started like hearing us and like making a path. And we got there. Like, if I had not said anything, if I was just myself going like, excuse me, like one person at a time, it would have probably taken me 5 minutes, 7 minutes to get across the room. There's that many people. But within 30 seconds, we were across at the gate, and the guy was so thankful, and I was relieved. Like, okay, we got here. Because I know my wife tends to not be the best traveler, and so she's already a little bit anxious, and so I was happy that okay, she feels okay. My daughter's there. Everyone's safe. We're all good. And when we got onto the airplane, we sit down in the airplane, and I'll always remember this is the moment for me that memory was. My daughter, who's 4 at the time, I think she was about 4, she turns to me and she said, that was really kind what you did for that man. And, and even now she's 8, she still remembers, she still will reference that moment when we did that for that man. And in the moment, I remember thinking, like, I'm so glad that she recognized, not that she recognized, that your dad's awesome, this awesome person, but she recognized an act of kindness and took notice of acts of kindness and said something about how it made her feel about an act of kindness. And still now, my daughter, my oldest one, especially, she is the kindest person. Like, she's so kind to everybody. And that's something that, there's no amount of telling her to be kind that taught her, or that would have instilled that in her, like that experience. And I remember feeling so proud of myself in that moment. That it was something that I took initiative of. I was a leader in that moment for our family, and I helped somebody else do that. And yeah, that was huge for me. And so that's like, a lesson moment. Another moment that it just burned into my soul it was just like not a throwaway moment, but it was, we were one night, we were all lying in our bed. We have a king size bed, and I was lying there with my daughters, and we were waiting for my wife, who was having a shower. And my wife also, she loves her showers. And so I knew that it was going to be a few minutes before the kids went to bed. So we're all lying in our bed, and I said, hey, let's play a game. I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you 3 stories. 2 of them are true. 1 of them is a lie. You have to decide, like, you have to pick out which one you think is a lie. And all the stories were just little anecdotes, not very, very short stories, probably 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes each. And there were stories of me as a kid. So I got to tell them stuff about when I was growing up. And so two of them were the truth. And I threw myself under the bus for a lot of it. So I would tell them about some mistakes that I made, sometimes when things went wrong, sometimes when I got in trouble. And like they laughed so hard at some of the stories that I told them. And I just remember just the laughter that they got. And like my daughter was like bent over, like she was holding her stomach. She was laughing so hard. She would have been 7 at the time. This is last year. And I don't know if they remember any of those things. I've never asked them about it since. But for me, it was like one of those moments like, wow, like, I got to share a bit about myself. We kind of made up this little game and it was so fun. Like it was so fun. We were all laughing. We were all like, I was just so present in that moment. And I think it also was because when I step back from that, like that time in my life, like that last year, like that was a really, really stressful time for me. Like it was some times where I felt a lot of darkness and days were long and nights were long, a lot of sleepless nights. And I think like even in that, like recognizing that, just being able to be present for that moment and remembering that was like, oh, like it was so good. It was so good for me. It was so cathartic for me to just laugh with my kids. And yeah, I think that's I think what heightens the memory for me too, is just given the context of everything else that was happening in my life at that time. It just makes it that much sweeter.
The contrast of emotions that you're experiencing, yeah.
Yeah, and I think even in recognizing when I think back on it now, like to understand that even in dark times, that there is light, that it's not all bad, that it's not all doom and gloom, that I can find joy, I can find laughter, I can find love in moments of despair, that it's always there, it's available to me. And whether it's thinking about, telling a story of the past, or just listening to my kids laugh, or any of that, it just, that can bring me back to that present. And I was probably likely feeling a lot of darkness because I was either stuck in the past or stuck in the future and not in the present. So it's, again, a good reminder for me to always be to be present, that's where the magic is. That's where change can happen, is in the present.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. And it's interesting, like even just yesterday, I was talking about a lot of the same things that came up for me that you were sharing there. Like, well, just being able to find that fun, even in all that darkness that you were experiencing at the time. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Life is Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know this one? Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites too.
Italian, right? Like just for us as dads, it's not, I don't think it's a true story, but is it? I don't think it was. It won Best Picture, I think.
He won Best Picture, Best Actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always remember the guy
Music.
the guy who won, Alberto Benigni, I think, when he won the award. I can't remember which. I think it was Best Actor. Like he climbed over the seats. Do you remember this at the Oscars? He climbed through. Never mind, walking across down the aisle. He climbed over the seats to get down. He was so excited. And
do you think is he like that in real life then? Because that's kind of his character in the movie too, right? Like he's just kind of goofy and funny and just like, I'm just doing this right now because it seems like the right thing to do.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never really looked up like who that guy is or anything else he's done or anything like that. So I'm not sure. But yeah, sorry. But about the movie,
yeah, is like some of the most extreme contrasts you could think of, right? As you were sharing there too, just in your story about being able to create those moments of fun for yourself and for your kids, even though even with everything else that you're experiencing. In that movie about he's Jewish, right? And he's separated from his wife and is supposed to be separated from his kid. They have a kid together, and it's a beautiful love story that starts out the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the World War II starts, and they're now put on trains and sent to concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
And he manages, I don't remember exactly how, but to keep his son with him, hide his son. And so the movie is a dad and his son in a prison in a concentration camp, and he's able to keep it as a fun. This kid never figures out what it is, and the whole he's enduring awfulness, meanwhile able to just create this magical experience for his kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
they
just
think
for me,
he tricks his kid into thinking that it's all a game that they're playing, some
right,
elaborate game for his birthday or something like that.
right, it's just extraordinary to me, just that idea, like just as a story, right? It's like, but you also know internally that it's possible, I think, and so I just think that's phenomenal for us to be able to do, and probably even for himself, right? Like to give Viktor Frankl, um, what's the book?
Man's
Same
search
thing
for
he
meaning.
experienced. Answer for meaning. Thank you. You know, even in his experience of being in a concentration camp, he shares how you make it mean, you're going to make up the meaning of this. And so even in that story, he's given it a whole new meaning. I'm going to make this a fun game for my kid, and that's what's going to get me through this. I just think, and it's like, we can find all kinds of real life examples like you just shared where this is
Mm-hmm.
possible. It's not certainly not easy, but it certainly is possible.
Yeah, totally.
So
Awesome,
yeah, I
man.
love those, man. I love how, this is also, I was thinking about why you've got this business and why you're successful at helping people understand their story and tell it in a way that's compelling for other people. I'm excited to take your program because this is something that I would like to get better at. Because it's one thing to know, well, first of all, it takes a lot of work to figure out actually who you are and what you're about and what you want to share. My brother talks about this too because he does a lot of work in brand. He's huge in branding and advertising. Is you might know
Mm-hmm.
what you want to share. Now the really hard part though, that's super hard to begin with. The really hard part is sharing in a way that's interesting actually for other people
Mm-hmm.
and engaging for them. So you took, your stories and told them in a way that were like you said, your kids were laughing their asses off to be able to tell a story in a way that your audience is that engaged and and is that memorable is phenomenal, right? Just so you know, right? That is super. Like I need to be able to do that because I can share all this content, but if people aren't interested, and it may be the right thing that I need to be sharing in terms of like for me, it's like this intersection of being a parent and solutions and technology and stuff. Like how do those cross so we can make our lives better and our kids' lives better and save a lot of time and money and all that kind of stuff. But if I can't do that in a way that people actually care about or are interested in, then they're gone, right? They're on to the next thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I just want to honor you for your ability to do that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I received that today.
And then I did want to reflect back on your first memory as well there too, and just you said it like how important it is, I believe, as parents to not just tell our kids, be kind, be courageous, be loving, but like we got to be the example. Like they don't know, right? They're a blank slate. To them, kindness is a word that we've made up, right? Like we've made up all these words. They actually might have feelings of love and kindness, but if they don't get an example of it, then they're going to get a distorted perception of what these words mean. Like, even love, right? It's not taken. It's not perhaps I take it for granted because my parents were really good with me, and I had a lot of examples of what love. I felt it, and then I got to see it, and I got it reinforced. And same with kindness, and same with courage. And but if you don't get to see it, if it's not modeled for you in a way that also feels good to you, like if it's not in alignment, that could be really confusing for
Mm-hmm.
especially a kid. So I just again honor you for being able to give them an example, in real life of what kindness is.
Thank you. Thank you. Ditto to you too.
And I was add to that because I was talking about this yesterday with one of our upcoming guests that maybe we can do a little bit of previewing because we haven't done this in a while, bringing on some new voices. The next two shows, we're going to have a couple guests. Next week is a dear friend of mine. You know him as well, right? Probably
Yeah.
not as well as me because
No,
I
not
talk
as
to him
well as
every
you.
week. He's in the one of the men's groups. Atlanta and I both were in a men's group together. And Cavi, I call him Crypto Cavi these days. He gave me some insights 5 months ago, and I mean, sure, everything's up right now. So talk to me in a year from now. But the portfolio he recommended I invest in, and I did my research. Anyways, it went up like 150%. So,
Bam.
but also I've known him now for 13 years. Anyways, I'm looking forward to having him come on with us next week. He's got two young girls, lots to share. A week after that, we have, well, hopefully, if all scheduling works out here, we also have an amazing man, dad, now a granddad, Chief Chad. And he was the former chief of the Penticton Indian Band, one of the First Nations communities here in Canada. So he's going to be on with us in 2 weeks. So I was just talking to Chad yesterday about a lot of things, and just the concept of empathy came up.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to mention that too, about how important it is for us to model things like kindness and care and compassion and love, because in Chad's view of things, and he can go back centuries on his people and their stories about just how important community is, and relations and connection and care. But the concern is in our society now, but we're creating systems that can erode empathy, and people don't get to learn what that actually is and feels like.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when you start to live in a large city, it's hard to care for that many people. And so you start to lose the ability to connect potentially. If you're living in downtown, you start to disconnect from each other. And you can hear all these stories of like the person that got hurt on the street and someone just walked by them because they're like, oh, somebody else will take care of them. They don't even sort of feel that care that I need to help this person right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about like social media and how many people in situations we could get exposed to on a daily basis, especially their kids, if they're scrolling through stuff, where you could start to lose touch with like that human connection and those human feelings. If you just see, bad things happen all the time, you just start to normalize it and numb to it, right? And so it's an interesting conversation around like making sure that we protect that in our own families, around being able to genuinely not just conceptually understand, but to feel and embody and get reinforcement and examples of empathy, care, compassion, kindness,
Mm-hmm.
love.
I love it. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having those guests on. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Good
Maybe
deal.
we'll
Well,
have
thanks for
some
organizing that. I look forward to that.
viewers. Um, yeah. We'll do a little bit of promoting. We'll see if people want to join for those conversations, or they can listen afterwards, or they can just go ask our real-time chatbot of what we talked about.
That'd be amazing.
Although it takes, right now, I have to figure out, I don't want to, it takes a little bit of work to get the content into that thing. So, anyways, that's the new wave of, what do they call it? Agents, AI, where eventually, you and I could have whatever, our virtual assistant who's a bot go and do that for us.
Mm-hmm.
Create the show notes, put it on Spotify, upload it to ChatGPT, save several
Yeah.
hours.
Love it. All right, man. Well,
All right.
enjoy the day. Be good.
You too.
Be kind.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Ciao.